Most subscribers are interested in building their influence, improving their communication skills, and gaining leverage in a career marketplace. Hey, I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. I'm going to share with you today how I build up my speaking skills, how I connect with people in the marketplace, how I get out there, and some of the changes that have happened over the years. So first off, I use my podcast to practice presenting and really getting in front of an audience when I cannot be in front of an audience. So when I lived in a more dense city, such as Raleigh or Virginia Beach or Williamsburg, or even in Southern Maryland when I was near Northern Virginia, Reston, those areas, I could go to networking events, and very often I would speak as a speaker to the audience, or I would get to interact with small groups or interact with individuals. And that was great. I could practice my speaking skills, working on my pace and rhythm of presentation, practice listening and getting ideas from individuals, and really connecting with prospective customers. Now, from time to time, I would be traveling a lot, and what I would do while I was traveling is I would record audio presentations. So I had a newsletter. Somebody would write into the newsletter and ask me a question about building business relationships, for example. And I would basically write an outline, and then I would answer their request in an audio or video message back to them. Now, this is the 1990s, and it wasn't quite easy to do video messaging. I actually have compact cassettes with video and actual cassette tapes with audio on them. And what I would usually do is I would record 10 or 15 different audio responses. I'd have my assistant would put together like a little paper clip on the corner, and each sheet would have the question and then an outline of my response. And then I would just talk to the person. I'd say, hey, I understand that you're interested in and you've had a question about building your influence in the marketplace. Let me share with you 3 key ideas. And then I'd just go over the 3 key ideas, and then I would close the presentation out with some kind of call to action. And I did hundreds of these things every year, maybe more, because I keep finding audio in different places. I found an old device somewhere or a box of cassette tapes, but I would take it back to the office, and someone in the office would take cassette tape, and then they would record the audio off the cassette tape onto either like a WAV file, or they would record it onto something else. So I had a portable cassette player or portable like dictation device. They would sometimes even just type it up and create an article out of it. But this was my way of being able to stay in touch with a large number of individuals, and to do so in a way that built my skill set. It's called a stacking of function. Now, as things progressed and you get smartphones, or I had some people in the office with dictation services, I could do more and more volume of this. But to be frank, much of my audio presentations have not been heard by more than a handful of individuals. So even when I could send a USB with a video on it, for example, I could mail them a USB because the internet was so slow that uploading a video would just take forever. Today I can put videos on YouTube, but you don't see my face plastered everywhere. Really, I found this mechanism, this tip that I'm giving you today, as a way to improve my ability to communicate. Now, there are still times where I'll be on the phone with somebody and I can't talk. I get excited about the topic, and then I can't convey anything of value. But here's the major tip. Tip number 1 is when you get a chance to speak, take it. So whether you're in front of a small group such as work and they ask you to explain something, or you're in a large group and they ask you to say a few words, figure out something to say. Have it ready in advance and say yes to the opportunity. John, would you say a few things about our new product launch today? Well, sure, I will be happy to do so. You pop up, you're ready to go. Now, what does this do? Being able to communicate clearly and confidently in front of an audience is going to boost your standing in that audience. But here's the secret. Even though you don't believe you are clear, even though you don't believe you're confident, you, by saying yes, have put yourself in a position that has already elevated you. Now, you can go up there and really mess it up. But again, most of the time, especially in a workplace, folks aren't going to ask you to say a few words about anything that you don't know anything about. John, what's the status of such and such a product? Or, we're going to do a presentation today and we need somebody to tell the status of the project. Well, you know the status of the project. Write a short outline, stand up, and then respond to it. You're in day-to-day conversations, respond. Now, I know this is hard for some people. It is often difficult with me. I get anxiety at times doing a presentation to a live audience. I have a biological response to it. The stomach is all churning over, and you're just thinking about it's making me anxious about it. But again, if you take the time to write an outline and you're speaking to a subject that you already know, things will go pretty smooth. So don't turn down opportunities to speak. Number 2, when you're speaking, I want you to talk directly with an audience. I want you to know everything you can about the audience. I open this up. A lot of folks that are subscribing to the Inside Strategic Relations newsletter, they are career oriented. They are goal out and outcome oriented. They want to move up financially. They want to move up experientially. They want to gain power and influence in their marketplace. Some of these folks own their own businesses. Some of them work for other people in middle management or management, and others are up and coming. See, I'm going to talk to a proxy of that person, and by doing so, my conversation is more focused on somebody receiving a message. See, communications is it takes 2. Somebody's speaking and somebody's listening. Now, I disclose that many of my audio presentations that I found historically, again, were produced for one audience person, kind of because I didn't want to talk to them on the phone. Or I'm in California and they're on the East Coast and I want to get a message to them before I get back from traveling. My point being is that you already have conversations with people. So if you prepare your presentation to talk with people or a person, you're going to have less frustration. You're going to be able to communicate clearly. You can think about what is it they need to know. Like one thing in these podcasts, I need to give you 2 or 3 pieces of information all around a single core topic. Otherwise, you can't do anything with the presentation. So again, if I know that you want to gain influence in a marketplace, and I'm prescribing to you to go ahead and take minor speaking opportunities, you don't have to run a podcast. You don't have to write a newsletter. But if there's a chance to speak up in your organization and say something of value, you need to be prepared for it. So again, you say yes. You speak to an individual in the audience. So you got to know your audience. Are you talking to executives? Are you talking to peers? And then finally, work from some kind of outline. Write 2 or 3 key points down on a sheet of paper. Stand up, and it's not reading off the paper. It's not taking 3 weeks with a slide deck. It's standing up and talking. What's the beginning? What's the middle? What's the end? What are you going to tell them? Tell them. And then what did you tell them? There's like all kinds of formulas you can use so that you can have the confidence without feeling like you have confidence. Like there are times that I'll do these audios and I'll check it out and there's like 3 people that listened and I'm like, yes, 3 people listened. And then I'll wonder like a year later, well, how come nobody else has listened? And it's a factor of publicity, because if I promote the article or I promote the audio, somebody listens. My point being here is that in the physical world, especially if you're near networking events or you're near trade groups or you have a meeting like Toastmasters, it's better to practice in the real world. So I'm not advocating that you go get a podcast, because you could do a lot of recording in a podcast and get no feedback from an audience. What I am advocating is that if you get a chance to do a video conference call, if you get a chance to do a face-to-face meeting, if you get a chance to speak to a trade group or a small group having a luncheon or something, you want to take that chance. Because as you speak, and there's a reason why there's not a lot of my historic audio getting remastered and published, because as you speak, you'll improve. So historically, I was difficult to understand. I was overly technical. I would often speak to a group and give them so much information, dense information. I was told by one listener that, hey, the audio was great, but I had to play it slow because you talk so quickly and it was hard to follow what you were covering. I've actually ruined sales by doing an hour-long training presentation when what would have been appropriate for the audience is some kind of lead generation activity or marketing activity. Folks, you won't know this stuff until you get out and try it. Now, your ability to walk up in front of an audience, no matter how big or how small, and speak clearly and confidently on a topic that you know, instantly makes you the go-to person when it comes to opportunities. Instantly puts you in a position where others will want to interact with you or engage with you. This is very good if you're in sales, very good if you're in leadership, very good if you're looking for a new career or a new business opportunity. And that's why I wanted to share this with you today. Because the truth of it is, when you start out, it's going to be horrible. There are times I was just shaking and I, just having anxiety and fear and stuff about the call. But the customer got the message that I wanted. It conveyed the information that they needed. It sometimes taught them how to do something. I have this big thing. I don't like to teach the same topic more than once. I'm going to teach it once, the very best I can at a high level. And then I'm going to go teach the details of each section. But I'm not going to go back and do the same presentation again, because the last tip I want to give you is kind of a bonus tip, is that if you speak on a day that ends with Y, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, you want to record that presentation. That might be the very best presentation you ever make. And you won't know it unless you record it. Because it's a different experience when you're speaking than when you're listening. So if you present and then watch the video afterwards or listen to the video afterwards, you could pick up all kinds of nuances that are going to start making you a better speaker. So I want to leave you with those things. If you have questions about what I covered today, my name is Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. I've been doing this for nearly 20 years, maybe more than 20 years now. I've recorded thousands and thousands of audio, written at least 1,000 reports and articles and other things. And I don't profess to be an expert in any of this, but I will tell you that if you've got any questions, I get a real kick at answering people's questions. And the big question that was coming in lately is, with COVID and not being able to meet, how do we connect and how do we make these connections? Now things are opening up again. And so you can connect by small groups like we talked about today. But guess what? This speaking opportunity can be in a video conference call. It can be on YouTube or a trade platform. It can be at a trade association or even in the business or the employment that you face today. I want to thank you for listening. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions at www.insidestrategicrelations.com. And I'm all over the Googles. All you got to do is search for Justin Hitt, search for Inside Strategic Relations. This podcast is syndicated on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all kinds of platforms. So no matter where you're listening, do subscribe so that I know that you're listening and that we can connect in the future through either an audio presentation or an answer to your question. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. We're here to help you create and keep profitable customers by transforming business relationships. And when you increase your influence and credibility and authority through speaking, no matter how small you start or no matter how big you get, that certainly makes it easier to develop those relationships. Thanks for listening.